and good afternoon again. I suspect that by the end of the day you will have enough of me. That said, this is an important part of the work that All.Can is conducting. All.Can actually focuses on efficiency in cancer care. And just for the sake of completeness, it's good to also illustrate the fact that it is a global community which is present and active in more than 20 countries, ranging from Australia to Colombia, Argentina, Canada, and very recently we have also an organization in South Africa campaigning for cancer, which has joined, and that's the first one in Africa. So that really shows, on the one hand, the global network, at the same time, the strategic framework that we all have in the implementation of our programs is always focused on efficiency in cancer care. Now, what does that mean? Efficiency is an economic term. I will not dwell on that. What matters is that any interventions, any policies which can lead to improved health outcomes for cancer patients throughout the pathway, from prevention policies, early detection, better treatment activities, quality of life, quality of survivorship, they are all within scope. And the other important characteristic to describe the work of All.Can is that it is truly a multi-stakeholder collaboration. It includes oncologists, it includes public health experts, Bettina Borish, whom you have met earlier in the day, is on the board of All.Can. It includes patient advocacy groups, and of course there is also the private sector, which is represented by pharmaceutical companies, but not only, diagnostics and other IT experts. So all in all, it is what I would describe as a think and do tank. It is a think tank because we aim at generating evidence and policy recommendations for policymakers with a view of improving health outcomes. And at the same time, it's a do tank in the sense that at the national level in particular, there are several programs specifically inscribed in national cancer plans where they exist, which aim at promoting and enhancing cancer care efficiency. That said, as an introduction, I also invite you to visit the website of All.Can, which can offer perhaps other information. The way in which efficiency has been illustrated in a sort of graphic manner is through this little house which has 4 rooms. One has got to do with healthcare professionals, and so supporting healthcare professionals and providers through a number of activities. Obviously, there is a very strong focus on empowering patients and partnering with patients. There is a dimension which has got to do with technologies, new technologies, whether in the form of new therapies or diagnostic tools, genomics, etc. And last but not least, I leave it for last because it's particularly important, implementing a data-driven learning system, which brings us to the point of collecting data, harnessing data for better cancer care. This is really one of the key elements that would allow to move towards the measurement of efficiency. If we get the data in the first place, we can certainly do a number of things which become extremely valuable and tangible in measuring efficiency. So the work that has been done in 2022 related in particular to the definition and the identification and definition of what we call the efficiency metrics. This work was done under the leadership of Hickey, who will very soon give you all the details of this topic, and the University of Southampton in the UK. And to give you a sense of what that means, well, first of all, this is simply a description. The bottom line is that we tried to identify a set of standard measures that could be comparable across countries and that would be cancer agnostic, tumor agnostic, and therefore applicable and measurable in different contexts. The point is that the research ended up with some very specific and concrete metrics. First, this has got to do with categories, 13 categories. You can see what they refer to. There is an important reference to the timeliness of care, in other words, the time from diagnosis to care, and even the time of the first detection of the cancer. It's important also to measure the quality of care, etc., etc. These 13 categories were further filtered through 8 specific core metrics, and these are really identified in the literature, in published literature, in different parts of the world. So this is almost like the core of the work which then continues to be developed. And again, I am prompting Matt to give further details on that. I would like simply to insist on the fact that having these metrics in place allows to understand where are we starting from and how can we improve, how can we do better over time. And on the one hand, it's going to be always a moving target. It's not a dogmatic approach that delivers certain parameters, certain criteria, which are going to be the same and untouchable for decades. On the contrary, the challenge and the beauty also of this type of exercise is that there is always an evolving type of assessment which can be fine-tuned and which can be adapted also to certain circumstances, whether geographical circumstances or infrastructural, systemic circumstances. The important thing which is happening, on the contrary, as we speak, is another type of analysis which is conducted with the help of the University of Amsterdam Medical Center. It's a group of researchers who are going to put together these core metrics and check them against health systems and see how health systems in archetypes, because it's a global exercise, by the way, are ready to absorb, to integrate this type of metrics. It sounds a little bit esoteric in the way I'm illustrating it, but it is extremely tangible, and it is pioneering as an exercise, if you let me say that. And the good response we've had from international organizations, from the OECD to the WHO and the European Commission, confirms that there is great appetite in understanding this type of details, understanding how the cancer care pathway can evolve in a way which delivers better outcomes and which, at the same time, allows to reduce wastages. I forgot to mention that inefficiencies as opposed to efficiency in cancer care today, according to reports particularly from the OECD, but also the WHO, inefficiency causes wastages of 20% of all the money invested in healthcare. So 20% of anything that is spent on healthcare, including cancer care, either does not deliver any result at all or can be harmful. This is in a time of shortages, in a time of budget restrictions, clearly is unacceptable. And that's been really our niche, shall we say, of attention, which promotes sustainability of systems and, as I said, efficiency. I stop here and I give the floor to Matt to continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. So I have a lot of slides, so feel free to take photos because I certainly won't get through them. And I'll try not to talk too fast, which is, I've already been asked during lunch not to do that. I wanted to bring to fore Research and Evidence Co-Chair for All.Can, also ex-Head of Cancer for AXA, the insurer that many of you will know, and now I'm CEO of the Health Value Alliance. I'll tell you a little bit more about us in a moment, but particularly the Cancer Performance Indicator, which is bringing what Eduardo talked about just now into a real-world application in multiple different geographies. I'll add a little bit of colour to what Eduardo was just saying regarding the issues that we see within the healthcare sector. 20% and 40% variation results in inefficiencies, results in cost consequence and negative equity within the healthcare sector. I've specifically used those dice up there. If I look out of my office in Epsom in Surrey in the UK at one hospital, and then I turn my back and look at the hospital behind me, any given day I can go to either of those hospitals and get with the same issue and get a completely different outcome. And that's the issue that we've got with regard to variation in the healthcare sector. So also across the country, there's 5 times variation, and depending on where I live. So we call this a postcode or a zip code if you're in the US, a zip code lottery. And it is literally a lottery. So that's a bit of a concern for us in the private sector. As a commissioner of care, responsible for over 197 hospitals that we were purchasing from, where do I send my patients? How do I know that those patients are going to get the best care? And how do I responsibly use the finite amount of money that I have? In the insurance world, they don't have the benefit of tax, so we can't raise taxes, etc. You only have X amount of patients or X amount of members giving X amount of money. So you have to rationalise your care. If I don't know who are the best performing hospitals, how do I do that? How do I send my patients into the appropriate network? Equally, I'm now remiss of my regulatory duties to ensure that fair, equitable and responsible commissioning with a duty of care and a duty of candour to protect the vulnerable individual, the patient. That's our mantra under the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. If I can't commission transparently, what can I do? We wanted to bring together an alliance, health for the ecosystem and health for the patient, value for all. No one stakeholder can benefit to the detriment of another stakeholder within the ecosystem. That gives a value inequity. And of course, an alliance where we bring all of the different stakeholders together. And what we wanted to do is bring a performance indicator where we all agreed, what do you mean by outcomes, cost, quality, and value? Because if you talk to one stakeholder and you talk to another, you'll get a completely different answer and a completely different set of metrics, which is why the metrics report was so important. So we brought together a group of different stakeholders from different countries, pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, policy, patients, etc., and a bunch of hospitals with some funding, and we said, let's sit in the room and ask that complicated question. What do you mean when you say good, outcomes, costs, value? How do we measure this consistently, and how do we prove we can do it to the benefit of the total value of the ecosystem? Because the other statistic that we don't talk about is by 2028, the 4 top insurers in Europe, or certainly in the UK, will be bankrupt with their cancer fund. 2 of them have come out publicly and said by 2028, we will stop funding cancer. That means 12.8% of the UK population will move back into the National Health Service, which is already on its knees. So there's a big problem. But it's actually a bigger problem because you're looking at a commissioner saying, I'm really in trouble when it comes to funding cancer. And part of the trouble, as Eduardo said, and what I've just alluded to, is we just don't really know how to commission very successfully and very well with data. So with these different stakeholders, we came together and we talked about what are the key hygiene factors we would expect a hospital to have in place in order to ensure good patient-centric care, good efficiency, and optimal outcome for the patient. 2% of the UK hospitals collect holistic quality of life on their patients, 2%. And of that 2%, almost none of that information goes back for clinical decision support to the clinician. So we brought together these key areas that we wanted to look at, or the key areas of specificity. We then brought together a bunch of data from insurers, from patients, from hospitals, and we developed a mechanism to be able to understand and put this information at the front of decision makers. I won't have time to go through these particular dashboards. I love a good dashboard. A picture tells 1,000 words. First but foremost, are you collecting the data? Can you collect it? And certainly the data that we looked at, the measures we looked at, the coalition said, yes, we can collect these. These are real-world data that is sitting in electronic medical records today. Is there good quality? So rubbish in equals rubbish out. So good quality, good consistency, good volume of data to enable to get statistical insights that are meaningful to the people making decisions. And that includes you and me when we decide which hospital we're going to get care at tomorrow. How do I know if I look out my left window or my right window, which hospital to go to? Am I going to flick my dice again? You can see the power of the insights that we can demonstrate here, and in particular I'll point at this one. All in the red, because they're not collecting anything to do with the patient. No patient voice at all within that particular hospital. So this is about quality improvement. So take your stake and work out where you are today, because if you haven't got your baseline, you can't improve from that. Then we can look at variation. And we don't talk about unwarranted variation, we talk about unexpected. Because usually there's a reason. And even if that reason is adverse, then we've got an opportunity to improve. So where do you sit within that chart, within the funnel plot? And is that variation actually something that we want to investigate further? And it could be that you're doing something different that's resulting in improved outcome for those patients. So the correlation between variance and outcome is really important. Look at the complexity of this particular pathway. What is happening with regard to the complexity of those swim lanes, if you like, and the outcome to those patients? We also don't routinely collect clinical patient experience data and correlate that back to patient-reported outcome, and then correlate that back to the therapy delivered and the therapeutic benefit. And last, we don't correlate that with cost. You can see very quickly we're talking about cost and networking. If we can compare, we can improve. And this is what we're not doing at the moment, and particularly looking at areas where, for example, it might be that you're getting the best outcome, as we're dealing with a group in the hospitals in the US, but they're also the most expensive. Is the expense justified? And is there a method of managing that expense? Last but not least, we talk about the finances. The whole system runs on money, so we can't ignore the financial side of things. And again, it's all about this information. Average payment per patient versus the 3-year clinical outcome. Very interesting when you're looking at it from a commissioning perspective. So, as I promised, I tried not to talk too fast, way too many slides, but it gives you an example of what you can do if you standardize the data, real-world data that is available, patient-centric data brought to fore to correlate between clinical outcome, patient experience, and cost benefit. And we're doing this across 22 countries at the moment with a bunch of collaborators that you'll see there, bringing together the work that we did with All.Can into a real-world opportunity. So I'll pass back to Eduardo there, and we can open to questions if we've got time.
Thank you. So in closing, let's get back to the policy dimension. The policy dimension, in essence, highlights and underscores the need to include efficiency in cancer care as a sort of political goal. It has to be part of national cancer plans. It has to be part of the agenda for all the good reasons that Matt illustrated, but also because, quoting a former WHO Director General, what gets measured gets done. And also policy interventions can have various levels of impact, as you can easily appreciate. Therefore, having, to my earlier point, a learning healthcare system which is data-driven would help improving health outcomes, it would help reducing costs, and would definitely help patient experience in undergoing through the care pathway. These are it's a sort of summary of the political asks and the call for action, which also as an organization we want to promote, we want to bring forward. In closing, really, I remember this big poster that a policymaker had in his office. It was a $1 bill note. You remember it's written, "In God we trust." And then below, very big, "All others bring data." Thank you.
Då hoppar jag upp på scenen på en gång här. Då är det parallella sessioner nu för att förtydliga. So there are parallel sessions. The session here will continue right now in English. And there's another session in the other room across in Swedish. So we will continue speaking here on the same, basically on the same topic. We're just fixing with the microphones. So I guess I get started since we're a little short in time, right? So my name is Petra Eurenius. I am one of the initiators of Fokus Patient. So together with Pernilla Günther and Mattias Hellström and a group of others, in 2019 we decided there was time for a new meeting space, a new meeting place, network for all patient advocacy groups regardless of disease. Policymakers, healthcare professionals, authorities, and others who are really keen on developing, driving patient inclusiveness, patient-centric, or patient involvement, many names for the same thing. So the topic to continue here on the topic today on this day of Cancerforum, for focus patient. We will talk about the right to patients to choose treatment. Is it even possible? And also to have a European overview of what is being done in some other countries. I would like to welcome up on stage the two speakers of this session. So we have Antonella Cardone. You are CEO of Cancer Patients Europe, and you are normally working from Belgium, is that right?
Italy, Rome.
Sorry?
So the organization is based in Belgium, but I work from Rome.
From Rome.
In Italy, yeah.
Yes, welcome here. And we have Sophie, Monsén Lerenius, Precision Medicine Center Karolinska at the Karolinska University Hospital. Welcome here.
Thank you.
So to continue on the topic of today, you know that the European Commission has a plan to tackle the burden of cancer. And within that plan, there are 4 core goals. And one is really to improve the access for patients to diagnostics and treatment. And if to connect that goal with that of focus patient, actually improving patient empowerment, patient inclusiveness, it gets really interesting. And it might sound simple. I mean, who is at core? Who is the important person here when we're talking about the what healthcare is really there to do? It's the patient, but it might sound easy, but it's not. There are still things to be done. So, Antonella, on the topic of improving patient rights and for patients to be increasingly involved in their own treatment, and perhaps particularly on diagnostics and treatment, you have done a survey with a number of European countries. So please tell us a bit about that. And I believe you have some slides also. So if you come here, I think the slides will show up. I'm not even sure you need to click. I think they will be with the support of... Oh, you click. Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Petra, and thank you to Pernilla for inviting me to present Cancer Patients Europe and on this so important topic today. So as mentioned by Petra, I am the CEO of Cancer Patients Europe, and Cancer Patients Europe is a pan-European all cancer types organization in Europe. So we work transversally on topics that are interested to all cancer types. We are, I mean, this is very briefly our mission and vision. And if you see, our vision is to reduce the burden of cancer on patients and survivors, their carers, healthcare systems, and the society as a whole. This is just to link our work to also what was mentioned before on efficiency in cancer care. So we do not promote initiatives that are beneficial just to cancer patients and their carers, but also to the society. So I will present now very, very briefly a project that we are running at the moment. It's a project aiming, it's called MyC, My Cancer, My Concern, and it is aimed at understanding how precision medicine can have an impact on cancer, and how patients can contribute to making an improvement in this environment. And we started with a specific cancer. We started with breast cancer as a pilot. And we started to understand the current situation in Europe, and we developed a survey in 5 European countries. So we involved the UK, Spain, France, Italy, and Germany. So 5 Western European countries. And the result was quite dramatic. So we could anticipate bad news, but not to this extent. So what happened was that in a few weeks we received about 1,400 replies to our survey, and the dramatic answer is that 4 out of 5 women with breast cancer eligible for genomic testing. So women who could have benefited from genomic testing were not told by their oncologist that they could take a genomic test. So, I mean, this is really dramatic if we think that this survey was not taken in countries where genomic testing is not available and not reimbursed. So genomic testing in UK, France, Spain, Italy, and Germany is available and reimbursed, but still only 1 woman out of 5, so 20% of the women, were told that they could take a genomic test. Then we tried to understand also how women understand genomic testing and precision and personalized oncology. And there is a huge lack of knowledge. So like 59% of women had not heard about personalized or precision medicine. 55% did not know the difference between genomic and genetic test, and 63% had not heard about genomic testing in cancer. So there is really a lot that needs to be done also on our side. And so those are the next steps that, based on this situation, we are now working on. So we are publishing a white paper. The white paper will be launched on next Monday, the 16th of October. And we will have a call to action on this white paper for policymakers, healthcare providers, and patients. So we also have a call to action for ourselves, for patient organizations to train, to educate, to inform patients. And also we submitted an abstract at ESMO that was approved, and so next week, we will also present this abstract at ESMO, and we are also organizing a meeting on shared decision-making on precision oncology.
And Antonella, may I ask, since you choose among the results that were, as you say, quite alarming and sad for women, you choose to point at the lack of understanding of, or actually lack of information even, about genomic testing. To put it simple, since I assume most of the audience has knowledge, but still, why is it important to understand, to do the genomic testing? What is the use for it?
Yes, so it's very important to do the genomic testing for certain kinds of breast cancers. It's important because genomic testing can predict the uptake, the benefit of taking a therapy or another therapy. So what happens now is that, unfortunately, often a woman with breast cancer takes chemotherapy, and then only after a couple of attempts, the oncologist recommends a genomic test. And so only after the body, the quality of life has been impacted by chemo, so only after that it is discovered through genomic testing that chemo could have easily been avoided because it would have not worked in any case. So genomic testing is used to anticipate the benefit or not of chemo, for instance, and so to target the therapy to the specific genomic of the individual. So that is very, very important for in this case for breast cancer women to do a genomic testing. Breast cancer women who have a specific mutation. For which genomic testing is already proven to work.
So naturally, it's a value for the woman who might avoid or not have to do chemo with all the side effects, and also for society and all the costs involved. So, looking at these alarming results, you are still taking some actions. What might be some actions that can help this situation?
Yeah, so I mentioned these actions that we are doing essentially at policy level, at European level, and now we are specifically addressing shared decision making. And on shared decision making, we are addressing shared decision making specifically on two levels, because in order to be able to share the decision between the doctors, the oncologists, and the patients, there is a need to have an impact on the behavior. Of the doctors as well, because if for a doctor it is not important, it is not worth it to make an effort to share the decision with the patients, then the shared decision making will not happen. But then also on the other side, there is the importance of developing knowledge and so health literacy among patients, which at the moment is still very low. So this is where we are hoping to have a strong impact soon.
So thank you, Antonella. I'd like to leave the word over to Sophie. You're working, so Antonella now presented some needs from the patient perspective and how to overcome. Sophie, you work at the Precision Medicine Center at Karolinska Hospital. I was just meant you may click to get to your slide. So could you briefly describe the work you do and to bridge over to these needs? It's quite a wide step, but still, precision medicine, how can it be implemented in clinical practice and be of use to patients?
So thank you, Petra. Is the sound on? Yeah, now
yes,
it's on.
Yes.
Perfect. So I think that there is no need for much bridging over, because I think you did it very nicely, pointing out at the importance of diagnostics and how that affects the treatment moving forward. So my name is Sophie Lerenius. I work for the Precision Medicine Center Karolinska, which is actually a strategic collaboration between the healthcare and academia, in this case Karolinska University Hospital and Karolinska Institute. I will not go through this, since we are a little bit short behind on time. But what I want to stress about this is that it's really, we have no excuses now. The technology, in this case, we're talking about genomic sequencing. It's both affordable and it's very rapid. Going back 15 years ago, it was extremely expensive, and it took years to do this kind of same techniques that we're using now, and it takes days. And this in combination with the enormous amount of new targeted treatments, and we also have AI to help us analyze this complex data per patient and also make it comprehensible and actionable for the clinicians. This sounds great, and it is. But however, we need to remember that this is really a paradigm shift for healthcare. And it's not that easy to transform healthcare. And in order to kind of facilitate and accelerate the implementation into clinical routine of precision medicine, this initiative this collaboration was initiated a couple of years back. And we're actually working within 4 key areas. And if we start with the first precision medicine in healthcare, it's all about securing and setting the structures and processes for how to work cross-speciality, cross-organizations in many times, and securing that. And one example could, for example, be how to incentivize working across the silos. How can we make sure that this would happen? And also how to set up the reimbursement systems for precision medicine. Another example is actually we're trying to set up a physical environment, innovation environment, for the development, but also then the transfer of precision diagnostics into healthcare. And we're starting with implementing the genomics into clinical routine, but also adding all other modalities such as imaging, proteomics, etc., etc. And this is ongoing at the moment. Another very important area is IT and data management. Of course, as you can understand, harboring this kind of amount of data in a secure way, and also being able to secure that healthcare has the kind of technical capacity to analyze and process this complex data is really sets new requirements that we're not used to be honest. And also a tough challenge for us is also making the data available because it's siloed. So only in Karolinska University Hospital there are about 340 siloed data sources. So this is also a challenge for us. And external collaboration, we cannot do this on our own, so we need to collaborate within Sweden, but also across sectors.
Question there on external collaboration, yes, to connect to the patient needs and what's really important to patients. Yes. How do you secure that you get that those insights? Or do you have a patient advisory board at Karolinska, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the Karolinska Hospital has several initiatives, yes, working with patients. I know that we train patient advocacies and also yes, to be included in the strategic management of the themes in the hospital. And also KI has quite a few initiatives on that. So the role of PMCK is kind of working together with the work that is already been doing or already been done, and supporting that. And just since we are here to discuss cancer, rare disease is kind of a predecessor or the kind of role model that is used to working a lot with genome sequencing, but also when it comes to multidisciplinary work. And this is also applied now in the cancer. So example is development projects looking at the development of new multimodal technologies. But also more importantly, how do we scale it up to routine? So looking at the research projects that are kind of closing up to implementation, we need to look and work together with those to see what is needed in order to be able to scale it up. And this can be various questions, but a lot is actually logistics, sample flow handling, securing the right competencies, etc. And also, yeah.
So at what stage is this now? Is this reality, or say scaling up from where? From the
yeah, I mean, of course,
from the desk or from
genomic sequencing testing is integrated into clinical routine in some aspects, but there is a lot work to be done, and also I think to really making sure that we have centralized units around Sweden to be able to make sure that all patients are offered this opportunity.
Antonella, would you like to comment on what Sophie presented here? Is this something you recognize from, for example, Italy or the other countries where you are more familiar perhaps with the systems and ongoing projects?
Yeah, so on the paper, the situation is very similar to Sweden. But then, when it comes to the practice, there are huge differences. not only in between countries, but also within the same country. As we heard before as well, there is a huge difference in practice from one place, from one hospital, one center to another center. And it all depends on the individuals that are involved in delivering the care. So it's very important to work on education, training, also for healthcare providers. Yeah. And then, just a quick comment on the data management. That is a huge problem across Europe now with the European Health Data Space, which is another big policy dossier at European level. There is so much that needs to be done in order for Europe to be ready and implement the European Health Data Space, including with this concept of the opt-out. And it's a clear example. The European Health Data Space and how it is managed now, it also brings up the need for us who work on health issues to start working with the citizens before they become patients. Because, for instance, on the European Health Data Space, currently there is a huge opposition from citizens in terms of the privacy issues, how to collect, how to manage, and how to use data. And we are completely disconnected from these other communities. And so when we speak to patients or on behalf of patients, we are all already sensitized on the importance of using data for research and how important it is to share the data so that across Europe or across the world, innovation can be fostered. But then there are groups of citizens completely against this, and they, of course, they vote and they have an impact on the European Parliament. So, we really need to keep our eyes open and try to work with these other groups.
To summarize the discussion very briefly, Sophie, would you have a final comment on? Let's say we stand here in 1 year. What are your hopes when it comes to to connect needs to what the research that you are doing?
Yeah, I think from a Swedish perspective, and I think it goes also for the European perspective, there is really a need for creating permanent structures for this kind of initiatives. Precision medicine is really challenging because you're actually doing research at the same time as we're giving healthcare. And we're not used to this. We're used to doing research and then giving healthcare. And we need to rethink the way we work within the hospital, but also the way academia works.
Thank you. Antonella?
Well, for me, is that it would be really where I would like to see myself in 1 year would be discussing or presenting good results on how healthcare providers and the healthcare system realized how important it is to deliver genomic testing before the patients have gone through other treatments, so that both the patient in terms of quality of life and possible survival rate would benefit, but also the healthcare system, because they would reduce waste and costs. Yeah.
And we don't have anyone from a doctor or healthcare representative here on stage, but I see that there are some in the audience. So I guess the discussion will have to continue over coffee and later on particularly the results you showed were from other European countries, not Sweden, but the situation is in Sweden regarding both genomic testing, the information, and of course precision medicine, the opportunities to really implement in clinical practice. So I believe our time's out. How interesting it would be to continue. But thank you so much for attending, and thank you.
Thank you.